Hello, Sunshine. I'm ALEXI LALAS, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue colored glasses. This week, we'll be talking, Copa America. We have a final, and maybe by the end of the day, not by the end of the day, we'll have a final when it comes to Euros, but we are recording this on Wednesday, July 7th, before the England-Denmark game. So we have one of the finalists when it comes to the Euros, with Italy, a team that has turned a lot of heads over the tournament, and they will take on the winner of England-Denmark. And as I said, we're recording this before that game. We'll give you a couple of recommendations out there and so much more. But first, joining me, as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how are you doing on this, as I said, Wednesday, July 7th. Now, usually we record on Monday. We then switched it to Tuesday, but now we have said, let's just get it done on Wednesday. And once again, we hope that you forgive us. How you doing, Mosse?
Doing great. Never felt better.
So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that I'm, speaking out of turn here, but the listener and the viewer should know that our good friend David Mosse had a fun night, shall we say, and he might be a little slow, although I think he's going to rally. What'd you do last night? What'd you get up to, my friend?
Well, after the show, a bunch of us went out for a few beers. You were smart enough to just briefly stop by, have one or two, and call it a night. I, of course, was that bozo who ends up staying till the very end of the night and closes down the bar. So, yeah.
Well, listen, buddy, you've been working hard, okay, and you deserve a night out, multiple nights out for that matter. And so, no shame. Many of us, including yours truly, have been there before. I was not there to see you in all your glory. Now, do you? I'm sure our listeners, our avid listeners, would want to know what a Mosse, a lubed up Mosse looks and sounds like. Do you start spouting off, incredible things that have been in the recesses of your mind when it comes to soccer? When you start doing that, when you start having a few drinks?
No, not really.
Okay.
I can sort of maintain my normal laid back demeanor. I probably talk less actually when I have
really
drinks.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of people that would love to be able to spend a night having some beers and picking that wonderful mind of yours. As we mentioned, we continue to be knee deep in tournaments. We are at the last week of our Copa America coverage, and it's dovetailing right into the Gold Cup. So much so that Saturday we have the final of Copa America, and then we go right into Gold Cup. Anything that you're watching or listening while in between all of the incredible research and work that you are doing for us on the Copa coverage?
I have not started Downton Abbey yet, but staying on the British tip, our boss, Zach Kenworthy, recommended a Netflix show called Top Boy, which is essentially the British Wire. And The Wire is my favorite television drama of all time. So that's all I needed to hear to give this show a shot. I've only watched a couple episodes, but I'm in. I like it. Looks very promising.
He was all over that. We were talking about different shows, and what's the Formula One show that everybody's gaga about?
Drive to Survive.
The Drive to Survive thing. I know my kids and my wife were all over that, and he brought up that one. The English version of The Wire, if you will, about gangs over there in London. So I will have to check that out. And there's a I guess it would be evidently back in 2013. This was done with 2 seasons, 2 episodes of 4. And then when Netflix bought it, they added another season, but obviously it's a whole time. The time had passed, so you can go back and watch it. But he actually watched it, where he watched the one that's come out today, or over the last year, and then he's gone back to watch it as kind of a prequel type of thing. But I will check that out. All right, so this is what I'm watching. New documentary on Netflix called Sophie, a Murder in West Cork. Multiple episodes, but certainly very bingeable, and an interesting story about a murder of a young woman in West Cork, and all of the interesting twists and turns with that. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, I think, on one of the pods, that I listen to a lot of different podcasts. Some of them have to do with soccer, and a lot of them don't have to do with soccer, but there's one that I listened to about the Coca-Cola thing I had mentioned about new Coke and everything. So it's called Coca-Cola's Greatest Mistake. And I just wanted to make sure that I called it out specifically because sometimes I just gloss over it. Lindsey Graham, who I think does a great job on all the Wondery podcasts over there, you can check that out. Once again, Coca-Cola's Greatest Mistake. And it's really interesting in this day and age where we talk about branding and marketing and of soccer. Oftentimes we're talking about it, but this applies to all of that stuff. And then let's see, on July 4th, me and the family, we watched Zero Dark 30, right? I think that's what it's called, about the tracking and then obviously the killing of Osama bin Laden. And then we also coupled it with a documentary that's been around on HBO for a number of years called The Manhunt, The Search for Bin Laden, which is really, really interesting. And
you're on a bin Laden kick.
I was on a bin Laden kick. So that was interesting. And also did it because, you know, for our generation and for those of us that were around at the time, I mean, it's a seminal historic moment. And yet sometimes you forget there's a whole generation where it's not that it doesn't mean anything. It's just that they are taught it as history, and the closeness of it is not necessarily there. And so, you know, recognizing that it is part of our history and giving in as much context as we possibly can. I just thought
I'm fascinated by that question, by the way, as a history buff, history major in college. When does a recent event become history? And I often ask people this at parties, like, what's the last year of your life that feels recent? And then when does it start feeling like anything that happened beyond that point is now sort of a part of history and something that you
Yeah, I mean, that's to your point. This is how I feel about, you know, I guess it's not unfortunate. It's just the way of the world, right? And when you have now a generation that was never there, I guess it's 20 years, I would think, where you start, because you have to start interacting with people and a generation in a real way. So they're not just kids running around. You're actually interacting. You're either working with them or you're coming in contact with them, where it's right in your face that something that you feel as much more vivid and real and not part of history yet, to them, they see in the past, and they don't have an understanding and oftentimes an appreciation or respect. And it's not their fault. It's just the way that history and the world works. Anything else, Mosse?
That's it.
All right, let's light this candle because there's a whole lot of soccer going on, and we are in an incredible week here, as I mentioned, with the finals of tournaments happening and the starts of tournaments happening and the continued soccer that's going on. All right, so let's start off with Copa America. Should we do that?
Yep.
All right, so we are recording this, as I said, on a Wednesday, one of our first extended days off, in that we have 3 days off. Now, when I say off, that just means that we're not going into work per se to be on air and to do shows. It doesn't mean that anything stops, and there's a whole lot of prep both for the end of this tournament, but also for the beginning of Gold Cup. But we have our final, and we have a final that, okay, not everybody wanted, but most people wanted. All right. If as a neutral, if you can orchestrate a situation where you have two of the great teams featuring two of the world's great players, Argentina and Brazil, Messi and Neymar, that's what you want, with all due respect to Colombia and Peru, who were in the semifinals. This is the marquee matchup. We got what we wanted. The stars showed up on both sides. Both Messi and Neymar have had a really, really good tournaments, Messi in particular. And we finally get to have them meet. They are going to meet this Saturday at the Maracanã in Rio de Janeiro. Mosse, we were actually interested about the Maracanã. And, you know, I worked a World Cup in Brazil many years ago, and you know the history and tradition of that great stadium. But you were telling us that because now it holds something around 70 or 80,000 people, but there was a time back in the 60s and before that where it actually held upwards of 200,000 people. And I know you have a story about the stadium, because we were asking you about it and what your history was with it.
Well, yeah, my dad went to a match, 1969, Brazil-Paraguay World Cup qualifier. Brazil won 1-0 on a goal by Pele, which the attendance that day was 183,000. But the 1950, the infamous defeat to Uruguay, it's hard to pin down an exact number, but there were reports that it was around 200,000 people. But yeah, the stadium's been getting gradually smaller. It's actually, Brazil have hosted so many major events, from the Pan American Games, Olympics, the World Cups, and each time they have to renovate it and meet all the specifications, and it invariably leads to it getting smaller. And I was telling you and Mo, there's a whole section they got rid of that was called the geral, which is this circle, like field level. And I sent you guys pictures of how many people used to cram into that geral for games, and it's unbelievable. But
I mean, look, there was no fire code, there was no safety restrictions or anything. Basically, if you had a heartbeat, you would find a way into the game. I don't know how many paid or didn't pay, but they were just packed like sardines. I think at a certain point, you just wanted to say you were there, whether you were able to see anything, anything or not. So an incredible history and storied history when it comes to everything that has happened with that stadium, and we find ourselves back again. Now, the unfortunate thing, and that has not changed through all this tournament, is that there will be no fans, but we will have these two great teams facing off and these two great players facing off. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about in our AskAlexi segment about the marketing, if you will, of a game like this. All right, Mosse. So we have Brazil and Argentina. You are our resident Brazilian. Are you feeling bullish and confident? Because I think it's theirs to lose. I've said that's from the start. Nothing has changed my mind. Brazil playing at home, playing in the Maracanã, with all the depth that they have, with what I have seen already through this tournament, with, yes, a reliance on Neymar, but I don't think even close to as heavily reliant on Neymar as Argentina is reliant on Messi. So are you as confident as I am that this is a Brazil title, and which would be their 10th and record-breaking Copa America title if they were to win it?
I am not. I have spent the last month on this podcast pushing back against this notion that this Brazil team is anything special, that they're miles above the competition. I said before the tournament even started that if Brazil faced Argentina, to me, it would be a 50-50. And that's still how I feel after watching both teams play 6 matches at this tournament. Brazil's one trump card, I guess, would be that they're very difficult to score against, very solid at the back. Although even there, Tim Vickery, who has never been a big Thiago Silva fan, is advocating that Eder Militão should start instead of Thiago Silva. He thinks that Thiago Silva's lack of pace at this age could be an issue. He pointed to that play early in the second half of the semis when Lapadula kind of skipped past him with ease and took a shot that Ederson had to parry. So Vickery, I guess, isn't completely sold that this Thiago Silva Marquinhos combo is as rock solid as we all seem to think it is. But I still think that's where Brazil have an edge over Argentina in, the goalkeeping, the center back pairing, and with Casemiro in front of them. It's just a very difficult team to score against. They can absorb pressure if they have to. Well, Argentina, you need less chances to score against Argentina than you do to score against Brazil, I guess would be the better way to phrase it. So that would be the one edge for me. But I mean, overall, I actually like, I think Argentina have more weapons that they can hurt you with offensively. They've gotten what Brazil have been searching for in this tournament, which is that center forward to emerge to be that other goal scorer to take some of the pressure off Neymar. Brazil haven't found that. While Argentina have with Lautaro Martinez, who scored in the last 3 games. Papo Gomez scored a couple times in this tournament. Yep. So I do think Argentina have other weapons. I like the way this little partnership Messi has forged with Lo Celso in the midfield. Although you could argue Neymar and Paquetá showed some glimpses of that as well in Brazil's semifinal. But just overall, that midfield with Lo Celso and Rodrigo de Paul, and we'll see if he starts Leandro Paredes or Guido Rodriguez, which would be an interesting reflection of how he views this match, because Paredes is a better distributor of the ball. Guido Rodriguez more of a destroyer. So be interesting to see which way Scaloni goes on that. But I guess, I mean, my overall point here is I don't share your view that Brazil are solid favorites here and it's theirs to lose. To me, it's a 50-50.
I will say this. When I look at the path that Brazil has taken to get to the final, it is easier than the Argentine path. And when we talked, and we've had a bunch of discussions on air this week about this this pragmatism, if you will, and a beautiful pragmatism, or I guess it's more of the balance that we have started to see from Brazil, and to a certain extent from a lot of teams in South America and Argentina. I will say, and I know it's different competition, as opposed to Argentina facing a Colombia. Brazil versus Paraguay, even though they didn't run up the score or anything, it never felt like it was in danger of getting away from Brazil. At least to me, that's the way that I felt. And then maybe that comes from the depth and the balance, and some of the recognition that even if you have to, get down and dirty and defend and win ugly, that's still okay, even for a team like Brazil, because there's still plenty of flair. I will say, though, when it came to the Argentina-Colombia game, there were moments there where it very, very easily could have gotten away from Argentina. And I felt like that maturity that we talked about, it was not to be found, or it was abandoned at times during that game. It got wide open with all sorts of stuff that could have gone wrong for Argentina. Ultimately, it didn't. All right, so you're not as bullish then as I am when it comes to Brazil. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And by the way, the Gabriel Jesus suspension is a big deal. People are getting that wrong. I know Paquetá came in and played well, but the like-for-like replacement for Jesus in that semifinal was Everton, who did not play that well down that right flank and was a drop-off from Jesus. Paquetá essentially came in for Firmino. Obviously, different types of players, so it meant a little bit of a change in formation, but so I don't view it as a Paquetá versus Jesus. And if Jesus had been available for this final, I suspect they both would have started. Jesus would have come in for Everton. Paquetá would have stayed. So it would have been, the front four would have been Jesus on the right, Richarlison on the left, and then Neymar and Paquetá floating centrally there. But instead, it's going to be Everton, who is a player who had a great Copa America in 2019, scored in the final against Peru and earned the penalty. And a player who I like, who I had high hopes for in this tournament, but he has not played well. And it's actually Jesus is an underrated loss defensively, because he's done a tremendous job tracking back down that right flank and helping Danilo. And Everton is not as adept at doing that. So that Jesus, it was sort of, I even heard some jokes about, oh, this is actually a blessing for Brazil. And I don't see that at all. I think that's actually a significant loss.
All right. In the inevitable, narratives when it comes to these two teams, and obviously the great players that they have, what has impressed you? I mean, if we can be any more impressed with these great players when it comes to Neymar and Messi.
I mean, where to begin? I'll do Messi first. I do think this is the best I've ever seen him play for Argentina. It's just, I mean, just the leadership skills, just the all around. I mean, he's getting stuck in the midfield and winning balls back, and just his ability to ride challenges and the playmaking ability, his vision, the passing, and then still being able to pop up and score goals. I mean, it's just it's hard to imagine a player doing more for a team. He's had his hand on all 11 goals they've scored in this tournament, which is incredible. So yeah, I mean, he's the best player I've ever seen, and he's at the absolute peak of his powers right now. So, I mean, it's been amazing to watch.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it on air, where there is a joy, and it's not as if he has never played with joy before, but relative to playing for Argentina, we know that there is a history where it has seemed like a burden to him, and he has not played or looked like it is something that he is having fun doing. It's much more of a chore than a gift. And I think that, whether it is just he sees the end in sight and he wants to make the most of the opportunity, whether it is the supporting cast he feels more confident in around him, or whether it's, the coach or just the whole setup. And we know, the lack of dysfunction, and difficulty and challenge and drama and I guess composure and maturity just within the Argentina camp, which has long been a dysfunctional type of place. That's a good thing. So I just think that he looks comfortable on the field, and maybe what is going on around this team off the field is making him feel comfortable. And you can just go by the numbers if you want. But the eye test, anybody that is watching this, you are seeing him play in a way that we haven't in a long time. And that's great. That's great, not just for this opportunity that he has right now. But knock on wood, from an Argentina perspective, they qualify and we see him in yet another World Cup. I'm not so sure that he's going to get an opportunity to raise a trophy a year and a half from now in Qatar. So this is another huge opportunity. But we've seen this movie before, and we've seen it where it ends in failure and it ends in tears for him as he continues this effort to check this box that, as we've said before, for a lot of people, he needs to. And so, so ultimately, do you think this is his best chance to check that box in terms of raising a major trophy?
Yeah. I like this Argentina team. I like Scaloni. I think they're headed in the right path, but not to the degree where I think they're going to win a World Cup realistically in Qatar. So this to me, and then I suspect he'll probably retire from the national team after that World Cup. So I think this is it. He's one game away in 90 minutes, and I think this is his shot at getting that trophy.
Well, we talked about, this is another opportunity for Neymar also to win at home. Now, there's no fans, and it's a pity that there's no fans. And I am interested that the moment when we are seeing not the greatest version, but a really, really good version of Messi coincides with a tournament that does not have fans. If that plays into it, I don't know. I don't know, but these games, I mean, especially last night's semifinal with Argentina and Colombia, it deserved fans. They all deserve fans, but we deal with the cards that we are given, as does all the teams and the players right now. But hold on, you have something to say?
Well, are we still on the Messi Neymar? Because we did Messi, we haven't really touched on Neymar. But
all right, let's talk about your friend Neymar. And before we talk, I love the fact that Neymar very publicly came out before the Argentina Colombia game and said, with a smile, but said, we want Argentina and we are going to beat Argentina. The sense of drama and performance and entertainer and the theatrical part of sports, I think, was on display there. He understands it. And so often we see players and teams downplay something like that. And he came right out and said it. It's what we as the public want to see, and it's what they do. And we are seeing two artists right now, very, very different artists in the way that they go about their business. As I said last night, Messi wants to beat you and humble you in the process. Neymar wants to beat you and embarrass you in the process. And they have both done it throughout this tournament in wonderful and different ways. But I compared it to two great artists who need each other and feed each other. Lennon, McCartney, and who else? I used a wrestling reference with The Rock and Stone Cold, or Pacino and De Niro. These types of artists that are going back and forth and creating works of art that inspire and motivate the other. And you saw that in the way that Neymar has played, but also in the way that he reacted, saying, yeah, bring it. This is who I want to face in that in that final. I thought that was really, really interesting, but I think it's really, really important. And I think it shows that while they are athletes, they also understand that there is a theatrical aspect to what they are doing, and it plays into the way that they think about the next opponent and the opportunity. I mean, Neymar and Brazil, they don't give two craps about the fact that Messi hasn't won. As a matter of fact, they would love nothing more than in that moment to be there holding up the trophy in the Maracanã with the confetti coming down and seeing the tears of Messi. So they don't want it to happen on their watch, and they're all for narratives and stuff like that, but they would love nothing more than to win yet another Copa America.
Yeah, just one point on Neymar, and then I want to rattle off a few stats, and then we'll be on our way. I think he's been absolutely sensational in this tournament. That second half against Chile, where Brazil was down a man and kind of holding on there. There's an expression in American football, field position, and people don't use it so much with soccer, but I'm going to use it here. Neymar single-handedly reversed the field position in that game. The amount of times where he picked up the ball in Brazil's half and went on these slalom runs to the other side of the field. And at the end, maybe it didn't come off the play, but it gave Brazil's defenders a chance to rest. It forced Chile to expend some energy in trying to win the ball back. And he single-handedly changed the feel of that game, where you would have thought with Brazil down a man, it was just going to be an entire half of Chile creating chance after chance and Brazil holding on for dear life. And for a few minutes, it looked like it was going that way. And then Neymar said, no. And it ended up where Brazil down a man created as many chances as Chile did in the second half of that game. And it was all down to him just constantly picking up the ball and driving it to the other side of the field. And that second half just blew my mind how well he played. And yeah, he's been very good in this tournament. With one caveat though, he's been pretty wasteful in front of goal. Give credit to Galese, but still that chance he missed in the first half of the semifinal, he's got to put that away. And we've seen it with PSG, even some of his best performances for PSG the last couple of seasons, that quarterfinal in the Champions League against Atalanta, the quarterfinal second leg against Bayern Munich. This past season, there's that, but he was sensational, but he didn't score and he missed chances. And man, Saturday, he can't afford to miss a chance like that, like he missed against Peru, that save by Galese, and then Richarlison with the rebound, Galese. And that was a great save by Galese. That wasn't Richarlison's fault. But the initial one, I'm putting that on Neymar. He shot it right at Galese. I don't know. I mean, he had an entire side of the goal to slot it in. And so that we talk about the small margins in these finals, and I think this final is a 50-50. And it could come down to that. If Neymar is I'm sure he'll be dazzling and create all these chances for himself. But if he has one of these days where he's wasteful and he misses a couple of chances like that, that could be the difference between Brazil winning and losing this final. So he's got to be more clinical in front of goal.
All right. So when it all comes down to it, because when next time we talk here on the State of the Union, these games will be over. I am picking Brazil over Argentina. Are you doing the thing where you take Argentina to just so you don't jinx it? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, I'm picking Argentina. I kind of think there's a destiny thing happening here. Keep in mind, I said I was going to rattle off a few stats. Brazil have only lost one competitive match at the Maracanã. It was the infamous 1950 defeat to Uruguay with 200,000 people. Pele, 77 international goals. That's the most by South American player. Messi is now at 76. Imagine if he were to score the game winner at the Maracanã to beat Brazil, and in doing so tied or if he scored multiple goals, surpassed Pele in this match. So, I mean, the stage is set for it to just be a delicious victory for Argentina. And Messi and Argentina do have, we talk about the big monkey they have of winning that first senior trophy since 1993. But even with Brazil, the 1993 Copa America quarterfinals, Argentina eliminated Brazil on penalties. That's the last time Argentina eliminated Brazil in the knockout stage of a major tournament. 6 times they've crossed paths since then, and it's been 4 Brazil wins and 2 Brazil advancements on penalties, including this epic 2004 Copa America final, which I'm sure we'll show video of on Saturday, where 2-2 Brazil won on penalties. Adriano scored this last gasp equalizer to send it to penalties. Heartbreaking defeat for Argentina. Argentina have not beaten Brazil in a competitive match since 2005, a World Cup qualifier in Buenos Aires, a Juan Roman Riquelme masterclass, which I remember well. But since then, it's been all Brazil when they've met in qualifying or Copa Americas. And last one, Messi, 5 competitive matches against Brazil in his career. 0 goals, 0 assists, 0 wins in those 5 games. He's scored in friendlies, so he's kind of dressed up his numbers against Brazil. And Argentina have won their fair share of friendlies against Brazil, so it keeps the head-to-head close. But don't be fooled. When it comes to competitive matches, it's been all Brazil lately. So Argentina do have that psychological barrier to get past.
How the hell are you picking Argentina? What is your problem? Oh, my goodness. Well, either way, it's going to be fun. We can't wait to bring it to people. And as I said, you go about picking your ideal final from a television perspective and from a neutral perspective. And this is what we have wanted, and we got it. The stars did their job. The big teams did their job, and now we get to feast upon this on Saturday. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. It's going to be fun. Either way, there's going to be some history, and either way, there's going to be hopefully some beauty within the pragmatism that seems to have crept into both of these teams. All right, shall we transition over to the other final, the final that's not quite decided today, but will be decided here in the next a couple hours over there in Europe?
Let's do it.
All right, so this little plucky Italian team that burst on the scene in the Euros and oohed and awed us in the way that they in a unique way, in that they were anything but an Italian team. They were exciting, they were dynamic, they were interesting. Maybe in the way that we've talked about Brazil, they weren't completely devoid of their past or a understanding of how to play the game. As a matter of fact, there came time in the tournament when we actually saw them almost revert to form. But having said that, this is I don't know if it's a team of destiny, and I'm not sure that everybody thought that they would find themselves in the final. But this is an Italian team that I think everybody, whether you're an Italian fan or not, can be excited to watch because of what they bring. Is that a fair and accurate assessment, I think, in terms of the way that they are coming out of this tournament, regardless of what happens in the final?
Yeah, well, what's interesting about this semifinal against Spain is that Italy throughout this tournament have been very expansive. They've controlled games, they've possessed the ball very well. And then in coming up against Spain, who are the ultimate possession masters, you wondered, well, who was going to have more of the ball? And the buildup to the game was all about these two competing midfields, and Verratti and Jorginho and Barella going up against Pedri and Busquets and Koke, and who's going to sort of win that possession battle. And it became very clear early on for Italy that, we're not going to be able to retain the ball in this game. So they completely abdicated possession. Spain ended up with 70-something% and really bossed the majority of this game. I thought Spain were terrific. So Italy, as you said, this has been a different Italian team, but in this match, they kind of reverted back to their old traditional style and ended up advancing on penalties. And Roy Smith, I thought, wrote a great piece about that. He said, the brilliance of what Mancini's done here is that he's added all these layers of expansiveness, but without taking away that grit and that ability to defend. So they've ended up with the best of both worlds. They managed to play a certain way against inferior teams and to dominate and to impose themselves. But when they came up against a team as good or better in terms of possessing the ball, they were able to switch and go to, and in a different way, sort of figure out a way to get through the match. So yeah, I mean, very impressive, and they deserve to be in this final because of what they've done throughout the tournament. I do think Spain was the better team on the day, and Spain are going to be really cursing their luck. And by the way, Spain come out of this tournament very strengthened as well. There were a lot of questions about Luis Enrique and the players he chose. I was down on Spain going in, but they played some lovely soccer. They remain the one country that to me has sort of the clearest idea of how they want to play. We talk about countries having an identity, and that's a word that's thrown around a lot and oftentimes doesn't really mean anything. Spain have an identity. Different managers come and go, different players come and go, but they've established a certain way of playing going on 15 years now that how Spain are going to play. And it's a style I love. I know people like to deride possession numbers, but I'm a big believer in having the ball and controlling games, and their ability to do that is amazing to me. They just at this tournament lacked an end product when it mattered. They do need to find a center forward, and they were a little shaky. They were shaky in both areas. I didn't love their center back play. Teams didn't have to create a whole lot to score goals against them. So that it was an issue at that end. And then we know Morata and all the troubles he had at the other end. And so that ended up biting them, but I still love the way they play. And if they can figure out improve in both areas, because what they have in the midfield is, Pedri, they've uncovered an absolute gem of a player. He is just a superstar that they can build that midfield around for the next many, many years. So yeah, I think Spain come out of this tournament feeling good about themselves, but yeah, Italy off to the final.
It's so interesting in the way you just framed that, because we talked so much, we all talk, it's an evergreen type of topic about identity and style of play, and can you identify it, and can you see it, and more importantly, is it something that you are married to, or do you betray it at the first sign of challenge or problem? And this, the way that you were talking about this Spanish team is that exactly what you're saying. They will die on that hill of possession, knowing that they are going to come up at times against teams that they will completely outpossess, and they will try to kill by 1,000 little cuts. And yet they're going to get that one opportunity, and something's going to go wrong in the way that it did against Italy, and they will lose the game. But I think to your point, they are true believers in that this is the way for us to play. This is the best way for us to play. Even if we lose, we will not betray that. And I love that. I mean, I love when you see something like that. But you framed it, and it has been framed by others when it comes to this Italian team that burst on the scene and showed us an identity and made us believe that that was their identity. You're framing it as, well, it's just a proper balance. And look, we're doing the same thing over in Copa America with these teams. And we talk about pragmatism, but there comes a point too where is there honor in just running straight into a line of gunfire, and getting mowed down? Not necessarily, but I'm just always interested in the way that it's framed. In one sense, it's you're betraying your identity if you do that, and the other sense, it's you're just being really smart and recognizing
and having a plan B.
Huh? What's that?
And having a plan B.
Having a plan B. And I'm not sure. I understand the importance of having a plan B, especially in a tournament situation where, for the most part, people don't care how you advance as long as you advance. And I guess the question to our listeners and viewers is, do you care? Do you ultimately care how your team plays in order to get those results? And I think for a lot of Spanish football, Spanish players, Spanish teams, all of that kind of stuff, it does matter. And they do care, because I think it cuts to the core of who they are, not just as a soccer playing nation, but who they are as people. And they find pride in the fact that they don't betray it. And, Italy, I mean, even when it was a classic Italy, it was a recognition that it's not necessarily going to be pretty to the rest of the world, but there's going to be a beauty in the way that we are doing it. And this team that we thought had moved past that or gone away from that ends up reverting and being Italian in the most important moments. Yet that's not portrayed as a betrayal. It's portrayed as, I guess, being smart. Interesting. Okay, as we said, the other semifinal is happening here in a couple of hours. Who do you got going through in that Denmark-England game?
England.
Okay. Is it even a question?
Yes, Denmark are
because England's involved. It's a question.
They'll make it tough. as Roger Bennett said recently, I thought it was a great line. England never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity.
Yep.
So you never know, but I do think they're the better team. They're at home, which I know the amount of home games that England has gotten to play at this tournament, you do have a bit of an issue with. You feel like it takes a little bit away from this run of theirs, no?
I mean, we look, home teams have used the home situation to their advantage, but what they've played, this is supposed to be a Euros. I mean, before COVID and everything, this was going to be this multi-nation type of situation, and it still was to a certain extent, where games were being played all over the place, and really that home field advantage was not going to come up until later on in the tournament. But what, they've played one game away? Every other game has been in England for England?
Correct.
Okay, I mean, then just host the damn thing and get it over with. But they look good. They look good. It's fun watching this team. There's an energy and a confidence. But to your point, England will find ways to England, and at the worst possible moment. So it's been coming home the whole tournament because they're playing there basically the whole tournament. But we'll see if it actually is coming home. It was interesting to hear in the presser Schmeichel talk about the goalkeeper for Denmark talk about whether it actually was coming home or not, and given a little poke here or there, because they are the underdogs, but they also are, for a lot of the neutrals out there, a favorite, given what they have overcome through this tournament to be there. And as I said before, when England was playing against Germany, there are as many people who want England to lose just because they're England as want England to win. And I bet you there are a lot of Denmark fans here in the next couple hours that aren't necessarily Danes and aren't necessarily anybody that's followed Denmark, but just the fact that they are playing England and the Schadenfreude and all the different things that go on when England is playing. So we can't wait for that game. So you predict England going through. So if you have an England and this Italian team final in Wembley, in England again, by the way, I mean, it's got to be coming home, right? Big sigh.
Yes, 50-50, but if I was forced to make a pick in that game, I would pick England. Yeah.
It has been, look, it has been a good tournament, and even a great tournament in terms of all the stories and the fact that they have had crowds. And I know I'm making fun of the home fields and all that kind of stuff, but the fact that there have been crowds, we've seen some wonderful goals, we've seen some great drama, and for a tournament that started out on such a sad and scary note with Christian Eriksen and that moment, and thankfully he looks to be better from a physical perspective. We find ourselves here with all sorts of stories and all sorts of exciting things to talk about when it comes to the Euros. All right, anything else when it comes to that before we head on into a break here and come back with some MLS stuff?
That's it.
All right, we're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, like I said, we'll take a real quick trip around the MLS world, which continues to soldier on here through this summer of soccer. Don't go away. All right, we're back, and let's take a look at some MLS stuff that's going on, Mosse. We have our first casualty when it comes to coaching situations up there in, well, not up there, actually down there in Florida. Toronto FC, which has, like all the Canadian teams, been playing their entire season so far down in the lower 48. Toronto's down in Florida. Chris Armas, who was hired after being fired by the Red Bulls, I don't know, mid-season last year, found himself to Toronto, and 6 months into the gig, and what has to be said, a complete and utter failure in terms of results, gets his marching papers. Now, listen, I know, and I've said this before, we in the sports world, when it comes to firing and sacking, we look at it as sport. There are human beings involved in all of this. I never want to take any glee or satisfaction or minimize the fact that somebody is losing their jobs. I know they're getting payouts and all that kind of stuff, but you're still losing your job, and that hurts for anybody. And it's not just the person losing the job; it's the family, it's reputation, it's all of those different things. And Chris Armas is a wonderful person, and I think he's a good coach. We'll see if he finds another gig going forward, but this is not good on his resume. I'm sure there's all sorts of things behind the scenes that have gone on that if you talk to Chris Armas, he would point to. But ultimately, Chris Armas, like any other coach, understands that they are there to get results with the team. And this team, with the amount of money that they spend and the talent that they have, has failed. And I know to a certain extent, I give these Canadian teams a pass because of the unique aspect of what's going on. Not having, Chris Armas will never have coached a game actually in Canada, which is nuts, but it's the world that we live in. And then you go to DC and you lose 7-1, and the way that you lost, this team has quit on Chris Armas. The situation behind the scenes when it comes to Bill Manning and to Ali Curtis, the leadership behind the scenes, and the situation with Josie Altidore, who has not been part of the team and has been training on his own, that needed to be sorted out. And you can say, well, that doesn't matter. Sort it out. That's your job, is to sort it out. And that was a problem from the start, and you should have anticipated it, and you should have dealt with it. And they haven't dealt with it. And ultimately, this team is too good. It spends too much money, has too much talent to be getting the results that it is getting. So they've made a move there. I don't know. They might just write off the rest of this season, given the situation right now, and just take their time. But this is a team that spends money, like I said, and this is a team I think that will continue to spend money, whether it's the players on the field or whether it's their coaches. And so don't be surprised if Toronto goes and gets a bigger name and spends money to bring in what they feel is quality and the type of coach that they feel is going to live up. Will Josie Altidore be a part going forward? I don't know, but that situation certainly has to be sorted out. Anything on that, Mosse?
Well, a couple of things. First off, he threw everybody off the scent by eliminating Lyon in the CCL, which was an amazing achievement considering all the players they had out in those two games. But I said this before on the podcast, I'll reiterate it. The biggest winner in this MLS season so far has been Greg Vanney, because you look at what's happened to the team he left, and you look at how much the team he's inherited has improved under him. So it's been remarkable to watch the differing fortunes of the Galaxy and Toronto. Look at where those teams were in the standings last season, and then look at where they are now. And the change is Vanney leaving one place and going to the other. So very impressive.
I mean, look, Toronto is sitting in last place now, 14th out of 14 teams in the Eastern Conference. 1 win in their 11 games played, 8 losses, 2 ties. And as I mentioned, they are playing down there in Florida. But you know who else is playing down in Florida? Montreal, okay, and Vancouver, who's also sitting in last place, is playing out in Utah. At the other end of the table, you got New England, which continues to roll along. Orlando up there at the top. Bruce Arena, and with what he is doing in New England, that's great. Congratulations to my friends in Columbus, who opened their brand new stadium, and it looks beautiful from afar, and I can't wait to get there and see what it is and do that compare and contrast with everything. But it looks awesome. And you got yourself a cathedral, a church, whatever you want to call it, but certainly a place that is going to last for many, many years and provide incredible moments. Seattle, I mean, we are 11, 12 games into the season for most teams here. And, you know, because of the parity and the manufactured parity, it is rare that you find 11, 12 games into a season, a team that has not lost. And yet Seattle just continues to roll on, the lone team in Major League Soccer without a loss, 12 straight unbeaten games to start the season. So Seattle is cruising along. Doesn't necessarily mean they're in first place. They have 26 points. They're tied with Kansas City. 12 games played, 7 wins, 0 losses, as we mentioned, and 5 ties. Still the cream of the crop when it comes to their ability to generate points on a consistent basis. You know what? Speaking of Seattle, Moadu showed me a picture the other day of Jordan Morris, who is out for the year with a knee injury, actually, you know, running around and juggling a soccer ball a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean he's coming back or anything like that, but it warms my heart to see a player who once again is going to miss a chunk of time. At least his rehab seems to be going well. Who knows if we ever see Jordan Morris back at the levels in which we have seen, whether it works out for him, either from a Seattle perspective or a national team perspective, but at least from an optics perspective, it looked pretty good. All right, see what else you want to talk about here, Mosse. The Galaxy, who you mentioned, Greg Vanney, who is definitely up, I would think, is up for Coach of the Year. They go into Kansas City, and not only do they lose, but they actually lose Chicharito, who got hurt, and so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Sporting KC, which just year in and year out does the job, is wonderful. And Peter Vermes is just, it's not a magician, because he knows exactly what he is doing. And there's not a magic wand that he is waving, but he does more with less, and he does it year after year after year. What else you want to talk about here, Mosse, when it comes to MLS?
No, I mean, you hit it. LAFC get a win over RSL. They're starting to creep up the standings. They're up to 5th. New York Red Bulls, they had a nice win over Orlando. Fabio scoring a goal. He's had a really nice season, the Brazilian. I mentioned Thiago Andrade, who's youngster, who's doing very well for NYCFC, and the Red Bulls have a pretty good young Brazilian of their own. So that's nice to see.
You mentioned LAFC. LAFC is hosting the MLS All-Star Game, which actually we will be broadcasting. So yeah, we're not only doing the All-Star Game, but there's going to be a skills challenge too. So that's going to be fun. They're bringing back the skills challenge. We did that years and years ago. So I'll look forward to that. They just came out with the uniforms that the team MLS, I guess, will be wearing. They're black. I mean, I'm sure there's a whole paragraph that explains what the different shades of black mean, but they're pretty much black, none more black. So you can check those out. We had talked last week about the investigation that was going on when it came to Minnesota for alleged racial abuse and racist comments from player to player that involved the Portland Timbers and Diego Chara up there. The investigation, as we mentioned last week, happened, and they could find nothing to corroborate any type of to corroborate any of the allegations, and so it was closed. You know, in the absence of proof, there's very little, unfortunately, that you can do. And just because, you know, something is found not guilty doesn't mean that somebody is innocent ultimately. But you know, you want these investigations to happen. They did, so there will be no sanctions levied against Minnesota or against the player involved going forward, because we wanted to button that one up from last week. All right, so as you know, as I mentioned, the games continue on. There's a bunch of midweek games when it comes to Major League Soccer. Anything before we move on, Mosse, you want to hit MLS related?
No, but I mean, we have a perfect segue here to another international tournament, which features 57 MLS players. So if you want to go there next.
You want to go to Gold Cup, because as I mentioned, it's happening. It's coming, and I'm excited about it. And it's coming starting on Saturday, the Copa America final and the beginning of Gold Cup. There are storylines galore. There are, as you mentioned, MLS players all over the place. And by the way, you know, I was talking about Toronto a little bit ago. They're going to lose a lot of players too for the Canadian team. So there are players that you can follow. And I'm excited for this tournament to happen. I'm excited to see what this U.S. team looks like. I'm excited to see what this Mexico team looks like. I am, and speaking of Canada, I'm excited to see what this Canada team looks like, because I'm, you know, while we sit here in this moment, we are so confident, and rightfully so, about the amount of talent that the U.S. men's national team has. I think that in a strange way, there hasn't been a more confident Canadian setup when it comes to the men's side in a long time, with the amount of talent that they have. So where do you want to start here? Let me just go through the groups here as they stand right now, because we even had preliminaries happening over the last couple of days to finish this groups. So these groups weren't finished until late yesterday. You have Group A featuring Mexico, El Salvador, Curacao, and Trinidad Tobago. You have Group B featuring the United States, Canada, Martinique, and Haiti. You have Group C featuring Costa Rica, Jamaica, Suriname, and Guadeloupe. And you have Group D featuring Honduras, Panama, Grenada, and guest Qatar. So a lot of interesting teams and interesting players. The locations for these games. There are games being played in Houston. There are games that are being played in Orlando. There are games that are being played in Kansas City. There are games that are being played in Frisco, Texas. There are games that are being played at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. There are games that are being played in AT&T Stadium in Arlington. So a lot of different venues. The final, as we know, is in the great city of Las Vegas. It is already sold out. I think there's a lot of people anticipating that Mexico is going to be in that final. A lot of people, we talk about the Brazil-Argentina matchup in the ideal. A lot of people, including yours truly, would love to see another U.S.-Mexico matchup in Las Vegas. A lot of work to do. This is a U.S. team that has not had very much time together and is sort of just being cobbled together. Plenty of talent, but that doesn't necessarily make it a good team. And Mexico's coming with all guns blazing. As I said, Canada is. You got your Costa Ricas and your Honduras's and Panamas that we know so well from qualifying. So this is going to be fun. From a U.S. perspective, the first game will be against Haiti, and that will be on July 11th, so Sunday, and that will be in Kansas City. All three of the group games for the U.S. are in Kansas City at Children's Mercy Park. What are you looking forward to, my friend, when it comes to this Gold Cup?
Well, I find it interesting that the U.S. and Mexico are not aligned here. That Nations League defeat stung. And so Tata Martino is in this to win it. And you look at the squad they brought with Lozano and Corona and Edson Alvarez and Hector Herrera. It's pretty close to an A team. And you get the feeling if Mexico get to the final and lose to the United States, Tata will catch a lot of flack for that. While the U.S., having won the Nations League, seems to be approaching this tournament a little bit differently in that it's more about uncovering players and building up depth with an eye towards World Cup qualifying. And I think if the U.S. plays well and certain players emerge and show that they can be useful for World Cup qualifying, but in the end, the U.S. loses a hard-fought final to Mexico, I don't think Greg Berhalter would receive any grief for that. Is that your sense as well?
Oh, I don't think so at all. I mean, I think just getting to the final would be an accomplishment with this team. And here's the, it's not a problem. I guess it's just the challenge for this group. Okay. I've talked before how I think it's disrespectful to call them a B team, but with all of the fame and notoriety and attention, and rightfully so, because of the talent of a lot of the players that we saw in Nations League that do play in Europe that are not going to be involved in this, inevitably people are going to look at it as a B team. So here is the challenge that this group has. First off, you have to come together very, very quickly, never having played together. Secondly, if you don't play well, people are just going to say, yeah, well, it was the B team. Okay. And you are going to be framed, and it's going to be difficult for you to escape that. If you play well and you find yourself going to a final and you're facing Mexico, whether you win or not, like to your point, I don't think is going to be part of the equation. But getting there, now you start to turn heads because, to your point, you can argue that this is much more competitive and this is much more a difficult task for a team. And if you were to get to that final, if you were to play against Mexico, and if you were to beat this Mexico national team in a historic type of situation, which is what the Gold Cup is, I think that your cachet, I think that your credibility, I think that your relevance skyrockets. So this team has everything to gain, and to a certain extent, I think everything to lose because of the way they are being framed. Not framed like you're framing somebody, but the way they are being portrayed. So I'm excited about that, but this team has to coalesce very, very quickly and figure it out. And it is not assured by any stretch of the imagination that they are going to even win their group. Keep in mind that Canada is in their group. They play against Haiti first, then they play against Martinique, and then they play against Canada. And there's a good chance, given the quality that Canada is, that game against Canada is going to be to win the group, which enables you to avoid Mexico going on in the later rounds and then meet back up if you go through in that final. So I think that there are a lot of challenges even before the challenge of facing a Mexico in a final. Just to get there, this U.S. team is going to have to figure out some ways, as I said, to come together very, very, very quickly. But within that, there is great opportunity. There's great opportunity individually, and there is great opportunity for this team to produce an identity in and of itself. I mean, for the Nations League team turned us on to a real unique identity and personality with that group. Here's an opportunity for this group to do the same way, and for us to say, hey, wow, this is really interesting what we're seeing here. There will be players, and I've said this before, there will be players that we see in this Gold Cup that will feature prominently when it comes to qualifying this fall. And yes, there will be players that will feature a year and a half from now in Qatar in November and December that you will see in this Gold Cup. Speaking of Qatar, the guests, we get our first look at Qatar. Good luck with that research, my friend. That's going to be fun. And I know you and your team are doing a great job as we get ready, as we only have a few days here before this kicks off. But as we know, Qatar hosting the World Cup, they get an automatic bid because they are the hosts. And this team, the entire team plays in Qatar. They've had some different loans over the years and different things that they've tried to do. But this entire team plays in Qatar, and it'll be really interesting to see what this team looks like in an international competition, because they are going to be there. And I would think that they want to, as much as the World Cup is an advertisement for the region and for the country, this team is also going to be an advertisement, and they certainly don't want to go out there and look like they don't belong. So I think this is a good opportunity and really good experience for this Qatar team, and an opportunity for us to see what they are all about.
No, I agree. I'm excited to see Qatar. They were supposed to play in the Copa America, actually, and then pulled out because of all the uncertainty with COVID. But they're doing the right thing. They're trying to line up as many competitive games as they can, facing teams from different regions before that World Cup. So they're interesting to me. Curacao, who you mentioned, they were supposed to be managed by our former Fox Sports colleague, Gus Hiddink, but he's had some health issues. So it will be Patrick Kluivert stepping in for him at this tournament. And yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. I mean, just to hop back to some of the main teams for a second, with the U.S., I mean, the players I'm most excited to see at this tournament that I think could use this tournament as a springboard to a really big role moving forward would be Daryl Dike, Eric Williamson, and Gianluca Buzio. Is there anybody else that I'm leaving out there that you really have your eye on this tournament?
Walker Zimmerman, because I think there's opportunities in the back. I don't think that position next to John Brooks has been solidified and grabbed by anybody yet. So, the center back type of situation, I think, is going to be interesting. To your point up top, we still don't have a number 9. And I think everybody is really excited to see what DK brings. And if he can, I mean, it's being given to him. Just take it. All right. And so that'll be interesting. Eric Williamson is a really interesting type of player, because he undeniable talent, but he glides on the field, and he's one of these players, and every nation has them, where it is so effortless at times that it looks nonchalant, and it looks like it lacks any type of urgency, and it looks like you're being casual. And you really have to be careful, I think, from mistaking just a real elegance and grace. Claudio Reyna was like this at times, and mistaking that for an apathy or a lack of motivation or a lack of urgency. Now, look, it's not like he's the best player in the world. It's not like he doesn't make mistakes. He absolutely does, and I think he can get better. But I'm not sure that fire that sometimes we associate with great players is going to manifest in the traditional way with a guy like him. So we'll see, but I'm real excited about that. All right. Anything else from a Gold Cup perspective?
A couple of things. You mentioned DK, and on the center forward tip, 2 other players to keep an eye on at this tournament. For Mexico, I'd argue the biggest story is Rogelio Funes Mori, who is an Argentine-born striker who spent the last several years with Monterrey. And Mexico now have a center forward problem because of that unfortunate head injury to Raul Jimenez. And there's a question mark over whether he's going to be able to come back. And so they're searching for other solutions. And a lot of people wanted to see Chicharito on the squad, given the way he's playing for the Galaxy. But instead, Tata opts for a countryman of his. Obviously, Tata Martino is Argentine as well. So opts for Rogelio Funes Mori, which is, as we talked about in a recent podcast, has generated some controversy in Mexico, and people like Hugo Sanchez coming out and criticizing that. But we'll see. He scored in one of their warm-up games. And if he has a good tournament, he could perhaps solidify that center forward position for Mexico. So he's a player to keep an eye on. And for Canada, Akinola, who chose to play for Canada over the U.S. No Jonathan David at this tournament. So you do have Kyle Larin there, but I suspect Akinola will receive a lot of playing time as well on this, as you mentioned, very talented Canadian team. You also have Richie Larea and Tejan Buchanan, and arguably the biggest star in the whole tournament in Alphonso Davies. So I was very pleasantly surprised to see on the roster that Bayern Munich let him play in this Gold Cup. And I've said before, I think Canada's emergence is the most interesting development in CONCACAF of the last few years. They're, to me, fast emerging as that third team. Costa Rica feel like a bit of a spent force. Honduras can be tough. They gave the U.S. all they could handle in the Nations League, but I don't really see them ever solidifying themselves as that third team. So Canada, to me, have the highest ceiling of any team other than US or Mexico, and they're really emerging as that next team. And so, yeah, I mean, Funes Mori and Akinola would be two other players I definitely have my eye on in this tournament. And, don't overlook Jamaica. They're the Peru of the Gold Cup, and that they seem to always go farther than people expect. They've been to a couple of finals recently. They have Leon Bailey. So, so it should be a fun tournament. I'm looking forward to it.
Can't wait. And like I said, that kicks off on Saturday, the same day that Copa America finishes. So we will continue on broadcasting a whole nother month of tournament soccer. I love it. Okay, we're taking a real quick break, and when we come back, it's time for Ask Alexi again. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're back, and it's time for Ask Alexi. And I know in the last couple of weeks we've used some audio calls. We're going to go back, and we're going to use just some actual old school traditional types of things that have appeared on social media. We still have the number. It's still functioning. 657-549-2297. That's 657-549-2297. And you can ask me or ask Mosse, just ask the State of the Union questions that you have, or just leave comments, questions, concerns, whatever it ends up being. We've had some wonderful ones over the last couple of weeks. Okay, first off, Mosse, what are we going to go with here? Our good friend Jason Wormser.
Yes, former colleague of ours who now hosts the very popular Wormcast that I know you've been a guest on.
Yep.
And Jason Wormser, never lacking in opinions, had this to say. Now that soccer teams are allowed 5 subs plus 1 in extra time, it's time to dump penalty kicks to decide tournament games. Sudden death, next goal wins, every 15, stop, get a drink, orange slice, and you can add another sub. A very enjoyable Spain versus Italy semifinal had no business ending in penalties. Copa America tonight as well. Obviously referring to Argentina.
Interesting. What is interesting is that Jason Wormser, who is a titan in our business and has been in our business for many, many years, would suggest that this is the way to go, because in the television business, windows and timing are very, very important. And theoretically, what he is suggesting, there could be no window or no end. This just continues to go on and on and on, and that would make it different. So difficult. So from a practical perspective, I'm not sure that this is something that can happen when it comes to broadcast and television. I am on the record, and I will continue to say that I love penalties. We talked about it last week. The drama and the platform and the dynamic and the pressure of that moment is wonderful. And it happened again last night when we were on set, and you live and die and breathe everything that is happening from afar of what is happening to these players. I guess my the way I look at it is that if you're going to do it, because I see penalties they're not a reflection of the game. Okay, they are a separate but very, very important part of the game, but they're so different than anything that is involved in the game. And so deciding something that bears very little resemblance to the actual game, that is where I can be convinced of something else. But I guess what I would suggest is, as I said before, that 35-yard shootout type of thing, where we're actually having to dribble, where there's motion, where there's activity, where there's angles, that mirrors the game in a much better sense than just kicks from the mark there. So he's suggesting dump penalty kicks, sudden death, next goal wins. Every 15 minutes you stop, and you can add another stop, because there's some people that have suggested that you do this, but you take off a player. And so there's fewer and fewer players, and therefore more space, therefore more opportunity on the field, like an NHL type of situation, which I think could be interesting. And I can be convinced, Jason. I don't know. What do you think, Mosse?
I like penalties, I must confess.
I know you do.
So yeah, I would. Let me just say too on Jason Wormser, he's had a good career, but titan of the industry might be a bit strong.
All right. Well, let's see. What's the next one?
David Wheeler, thoughts on the ruling for college athletes?
Okay, so this is the the ruling that they now are in control and can capitalize on their likeness and their image. I'm assuming that's what he's talking about. Look, fill your boots. All right, have at it. Knock yourself out if you have the wherewithal and the ability to do that now, and it is sanctioned and legal, and you're not violating any of the the incredible NCAA laws that exist. Then go for it. I have no problem in that this is the new normal. It does get me to think about, if I in that moment let's be honest, the amount of college soccer players where this can actually result in them generating a significant amount of revenue is very, very small. All right. If any. But I think back of, if this had existed at my time, would I have found a way? I don't know. Now, keep in mind, this also doesn't mean that you aren't required to live up to the expectations, the academic requirements. And so you have to be able to add this to your plate of existence as this college athlete. And you may have people that manage it for you and are able to hustle and generate different things. But it also will require investment and or time and resources from the individual athlete at taking him or her away from things that they are doing. And there'll be those that are able to do it and able to manage it and able to continue to keep up with the academic requirements and everything else. And there'll be those, unfortunately, that aren't. And there'll be those that get into trouble with it, either direct trouble or indirect trouble. And there will be those that think that they can capitalize on it that don't. But yeah, I got no problem. I'll be interested to see how much this impacts soccer. If they find ways to make the college soccer path more appealing, because we know that it has become less and less so over the years, that could be a good thing. I'm an incredible proponent for the college path and what it gives you, not just as a player, but as an individual, and the unique skills and experience that it provides that I think can be beneficial and can help you not only be successful in that 90 minutes on the field, but in that other 22 and a half hours off the field that so often we neglect or don't talk about. So yeah, I think that's okay. But I do wonder what I would have done with that opportunity back then. I mean, I had a little notoriety, but I don't know. I mean, Chico's bail bonds or something like that to license out my likeness and my image for something like that. I doubt that there would be massive amounts of revenue generation potential when it comes to me or anybody else. But I do recognize that there's certainly those that can. Not anybody up there at the University of Michigan, because evidently you told me last night your football team sucks, so nobody's going to want or value any type of likeness or image when it comes to any of the players. Although Mr. Harbaugh might be able to do some things, but he could do that in the past anyway, right, Mosse?
There's already some grumbling in the fan base that Michigan wasn't as prepared for this as Ohio State and isn't raising enough money. But we'll see. Michigan has a lot of potential with this name, image, and likeness deal. So if we make the right moves here, this could potentially be a good thing for us. But with the people in charge right now, that's no guarantee that we're going to make the right moves.
It's a brave new world. All right, what else, Mosse?
And we'll end on this. Del Schaffer went off. He says, it's sad, and sad with capital letters, that America, i.e. Fox Soccer, has to advertise the Copa America final as Neymar versus Messi instead of Brazil versus Argentina. Soccer is bigger than that, and this is disrespectful to their teams. Am I wrong? And then he included you, Stu Holden, Rob Stone, and Maurice Seydoux.
Okay. Yes, Del, you are wrong. Okay. It's not sad. It is the reality. And if you find that sad, then okay. Then for you, it's sad. But for me, it's not sad. For me, it is smart business. We talk about that tent all the time. And welcome to the world of broadcasting. Welcome to the world of marketing. Welcome to the world of trying to get as many people as possible into that tent. And the soccer people, you, Del, and others, we're all going to be there, okay? It's about the people that are just passing by. It's about the people that may or may not partake in it. And guess what? Those people, there's a good chance they may have heard of Messi and Neymar. And if that's the hook that gets them into the soccer tent, then we would be derelict in our duties if we did not promote that, okay? And don't think for a second that this is just something that's limited to the American soccer culture, American soccer broadcasting culture out there, okay? The fact that Messi and Neymar are playing in a final is huge news to everybody that is invested in Copa America. This is a good thing, okay? Yes, these are two historic teams in Argentina and Brazil, but I don't think that we are being disrespectful. The promoting and the marketing of stars is not a uniquely American thing. And as I said before, it is smart business. Everybody does it. Everybody will continue to do it. It is what sells, whether it's sports or anything else. And as I said before, if we were to not do it, we would not be doing our jobs. You're damn right. We're going to lean into the fact that two of the great players, and arguably when it comes to Messi, certainly, and who knows when it's all said and done with Neymar, but when it comes to Messi, arguably the greatest player ever to play the game, are meeting up in a final in Copa America. You're damn right. We are going to promote that. And as we should, and we will continue to do so. And whether it's Gold Cup or whether it's World Cup, men's, women's, stars sell. And they bring more people into the tent that otherwise wouldn't be there. Now, to your point, the unique aspect of the United States is that we have all the other sports, and soccer is not king. So even more so, we are looking to find angles and different hooks out there to bring a public in that may not follow soccer, may not know a whole lot about soccer. And big stars like Messi and Neymar, that's some pretty good bait. So we will use them, and we will hopefully hook some more people into that tent. Mosse, anything to say about this?
To criticize the company you work for, it takes courage and integrity. And if you're expecting those qualities out of me, we've clearly never met, Del. But no, I will say there has been some conversation about the fact that the Euros have been a more team-driven tournament in that we've seen a lot of collectively great soccer. We haven't necessarily seen that one star emerge and have an incredible tournament. And in fact, you look at the remaining teams, and there's not that one player that if his team wins it, it's going to propel that player to winning the Ballon d'Or. While the Copa America has been a more star-driven tournament in that you've had Neymar and Messi sort of trading punches and giving these great performances. And you do feel like certainly with Messi, I do think if Argentina win this final, he becomes the prohibitive favorite to win his 7th Ballon d'Or. So yeah, I mean, and Fox maybe does lead into this.
But don't think for a second that ESPN, if Portugal was in the final, all right, wouldn't be plastering Cristiano Ronaldo.
No, that's my point. Like Fox does,
and BBC, by the way, not just ESPN. BBC and others out there. If Portugal was in the final, you know that Cristiano Ronaldo. So Fox the fact that they don't have those big type stars, that's why they are promoting.
That's my point. Fox does lean into the star thing a little too much at times, but in this case, I actually think it's sort of appropriate with how these two tournaments broke. That one was more about the collective play and the teams. Like you look at this Italy team, and it's really a story of like a team, the different guys emerging each game. There's not that one guy you're going to grab onto and say, well, he's been the guy that's taken Italy to this final. While, clearly you look at the two finalists of the Copa America and there's no way around it. Both of them have one player that stands tall above the rest and is clearly the reason why they're in this final. So I think it is sort of the way the two tournaments have been covered. In this case, I actually think is appropriate to how the two tournaments have broken,
All right. Once again, if you, thank you for sending us your questions in all different forms out there on social media or any other way you were able to get those messages to us. We do continue to have our hotline, 657-549-2297. That's 657-549-2297. So there's another way that you can get your questions and comments and concerns to us. All right, we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, the end of our show, and at the end of our show, it's my one for the road. So don't go anywhere. Okay, we're back, and it's time for my one for the road. If you are watching this, you will see that I am wearing a shirt here from Angel City. It is the newest player, if you will, in the American professional soccer game, the expansion and newest team in the NWSL. They will be opening up next year, so 2022. They just came out with this new brand, so we are seeing what they are looking like. And if you can't see it, it's and I think it's really well done. It's simple, it's clean, it's easy, and it's recognizable. They have pink in theirs. I've been on record when it comes to Inter Miami that I don't think they have leaned into the pink side as much as I would like. So I hope that Angel City, when they come online, that they do lean into the pink. I love pink. You'll see me on air wearing pink more often than not because I just love the way that it looks. And I would love to see a real pink team. I thought Miami was going to be that, but it has not been. So maybe Angel City becomes that pink team. I also like the fact that you can draw it. And, we talk a lot about branding on this show and in American soccer because of the rebrands or the brands and all that kind of stuff. And as I've said before, I want it to be able to be, I don't want it to be childlike, but I want a child to be able to draw it. I remember writing all of my band logos on my different things. And I think you should be able to do that. And I think in this, they've come up with a pretty good thing that I think is going to resonate. I think a lot of people are going to want to wear it either on a shirt or on a hat or something like that. And it will be instantly recognizable as that soccer team. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they look like on the field. I live in the city of Angels here in Los Angeles, and this is a very attractive destination. And I don't think that they will be hurting for players who want to come play here. They can't all come play here, but I think that this city will be an incredible recruiting mechanism for that team. So congratulations on the unveiling of a new brand. And I guess congratulations on not being yelled at and or criticized relative to some other brands that have come out over the last couple of years. In that sense, you hit it out of the park, and it looks good. But we all know that ultimately it's the product on the field that you are selling. And so we'll see if this Angel City FC team ends up living up to the aesthetic that they have come out with. Mosse, anything before we go?
One on the topic of women's soccer. I know it was wiped away because of an inadvertent whistle, which is mind-blowing that could happen at this level. But that goal the U.S. scored is one of the best team goals, men or women, you don't even have to qualify it as in women's soccer. It's best team goals, period, I've ever seen in my life. I've watched that clip probably 20 times. I can't get enough of it. What a freaking goal, the way they just knocked it around like that. I mean, am I wrong? Is that not one of the most incredible team moves you've ever seen?
It didn't count.
But come on.
Well, what? I mean, it's not really a goal.
All right.
All right. No, I know. I'm being grumpy about it. No. I mean, look, it's wonderful. It's by the greatest team in the world. It's by the favorites who are going to, this summer's Olympics. And unless something very strange happens, they will win another gold, and then they will proceed to try to defend their back-to-back World Cups in Australia and New Zealand. So I cannot wait to see what this team does. And they are going in flying right now. Anything else before we go?
That's it.
All right. Thank you to everybody for listening, writing, reviewing, subscribing, downloading, doing all the different things that you do here for our State of the Union podcast. Again, apologies that it is coming late. There will be a point, hopefully, in the future where we get back on schedule. But it's like summer scheduling, summer hours for us here. We are recording here on Wednesday, July 7th. Enjoy the soccer, whether it's the U.S.-Denmark game that's coming up here in a couple of hours, or this weekend, as we mentioned, with the finals of both Euros and the finals of Copa America, featuring Messi and Neymar. Messi, Neymar, Neymar, Messi, Messi, Neymar. And then, of course, the kickoff and the start to what hopefully is going to be a successful, from American perspective, campaign when it comes to Gold Cup. And we will be bringing all of that action to you on Fox. Have a great week, and we will talk again next week here on the State of the Union. Until then, and as always, size the day.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.